the Don of New York. Now, listen, I understand
Mm-hmm.
that I am a young, viral human being.
Right.
I wear a size 15 shoe, which
Right.
means that, I buy larger socks,
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff.
Right.
Donovan Mitchell's a stud.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any other way to validate my awesomeness other than to say Donovan Mitchell's performance at Madison Square Garden last night was remarkable.
That motherfucker don't
I
miss, man.
mean, the three ball was going in. Wow, that's a new drop very early in the show, MFers. That three ball was going in. He was dominating. And as you give us a thumbs up and like on this YouTube program, so that you too can subscribe and win a PlayStation 5, I
Mm-hmm.
ask you to consider Donovan Mitchell's superstardom, because I look at what Don did yesterday at Madison Square Garden, and I may be the only one, I feel like, who's defending this guy as one of the top offensive players in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And while I fully realize he's got another step in growth where he needs a mid-range game that is absolutely lock, can't miss, go-to jump shot, which currently is absent from his game. But Jake, I don't know how much more Donovan Mitchell needs to do to prove that he is among the elite scorers in this league.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly capable, and I think if nothing else last night, what he showed us is that he really cares about playing in New York. He really cares about balling out when they go to play the Knicks, specifically. And I think that obviously, that's his hometown and everything, but I just think that this is the kind of Donovan Mitchell I want to see on a nightly basis. I want to see, Madison Square Garden Donovan Mitchell when they're in, Orlando or Sacramento or whatever the case may be. This is the kind of killer mentality that I've been asking for and waiting for out of Donovan Mitchell. And I think that consistency and bringing that mentality is going to be huge for him. If he can be this guy consistently, obviously they're going to be a much better team. Now, that said, the Knicks are obviously a mediocre team. They're not very good. We would have expected the Jazz to beat this team, but I just think the way Don was playing, the killer mentality all the way through the end of the game, just looking to take it to him. That's the kind of performance I want to see consistently. Sometimes I feel like Don is just kind of, he's just kind of out there. He's running the offense. He's looking for his teammates, but sometimes you need to be the guy. Sometimes you need to just say, okay, get out of the way. I'm going to handle this. And we saw that most of the game last night. So I liked what I saw. I think that Donovan Mitchell is definitely one of the most talented offensive players in the NBA. He does still have quite a bit of growth to go. And I think last night was super enjoyable to watch. That said, I think it was a good start to this East Coast trip. They obviously have quite a few games coming up that are going to be challenging, but again, all of this to say, as long as they keep the 4 seed and Don's healthy, you're going to be in a good spot. So I think that's the goal with this road trip right now.
Well, and I think the other question that I have on my mind right now is, do Jazz fans, but more importantly, does this Jazz organization value Donovan Mitchell highly enough?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was no coincidence that the New York Knicks broadcast with Clyde Frazier and Mike Breen were absolutely selling high on Donovan Mitchell. They were in love with this cat. They were raving about Don like it was not accidental.
Right.
And they are clearly going out of their way to do what we've told you they are doing already, which is recruiting Donovan Mitchell. He was clearly at the top of his game. The crowd loved him. And I understand this is his home building. I understand it's the Garden. I understand it's against the Knicks. This was something different. I felt like Donovan Mitchell was in the Garden trying to prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that emphatic dunk in the fourth quarter, I think the range that he showed on his three-pointer, these were all point proven. And my question is, was the point to be proven to the Knicks or was the point to be proven to the Jazz? Because I question, and we will get the answer this summer, but I question whether or not, Jake, this Jazz team values Donovan Mitchell enough.
Yeah, I think that there's, Don is somebody that should be valued at the highest level, but I don't know what else they could do right now to value him more, and that's kind of the tough spot with where this team is at. What could you do right now to show Don that you value him more? I don't know, man. I think that, obviously he gets all his minutes, they clearly are around him and not Rudy, that much is very clear. By the way, I thought Rudy had moments where he kind of just was disappearing last night, especially when Robinson was in the game. So that was kind of an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I mean, do they value him enough? Yeah, I guess this summer will tell. But I think that you're on an extension now. You're in a good place as a basketball player if you're Donovan Mitchell. I still maintain that I think at some point before his career is over, he'll be a Knick or he'll play on the East Coast somewhere. I just think that's inevitable because he's from there. I mean, every player, does that. Look no further than Russell Westbrook, right? I mean, he goes to LA where he's from, and wants to play, even though the season's been terrible. It's been pretty much an embarrassment and a complete failure. Guys do it all the time. They want to go home. That's why LeBron went back to Cleveland for a second stint, So I wouldn't be surprised if Don plays for the Knicks, but I just don't think that the Jazz can do much more right now to say, hey, Don, we value you. We want to build around you. Like, again, we've been telling you that they talked to Don and said that the plan is to build around him and to completely change this roster and build a winner. So, yeah, do they value him enough? Yeah, I think they do. I don't know what else they could do at this point,
Well, my feeling is that we're at a real critical moment in time with Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. I don't know how else I would phrase it. I just continue to espouse and wax on this very program that Donovan Mitchell is a generational talent, that Donovan Mitchell is a guy that you can build a championship team around, that Donovan Mitchell is the priority for this organization, and he should be. And now it's time to act on that. And you continue to see as the games tick on that Donovan Mitchell is the straw. He is the spark. He is the absolute motor for this team. And I do believe that Danny Ainge sees that. I do not believe that Jazz fans value Donovan Mitchell enough. Certainly, I think Jazz fans, with all due respect, as passionate as Jazz fans are, as much as I think Jazz fans care about this team, I do not believe that Utah Jazz fans value Donovan Mitchell the way that they should. And I know there are some demographics in this state. I know that there are some societal issues in this state. But I'm telling you now, from a pure human being perspective, you're never going to find better than Donovan Mitchell. From a basketball perspective, this cat's about to blow up into one of the elite scorers, possibly the best player of his generation. And I hope Utah Jazz fans see that, because the Jazz are going to display that this summer.
Yeah.
One way or the other. You're either going to build this entire team around Donovan Mitchell, or he's not going to be here in 2 years, period. But I don't know what more he can do to win over Jazz fans. And it's one of the more frustrating things that I think about regularly.
Yeah, I think Jazz fans just want to win. I think Jazz fans are tired of talking about the second round or the Clippers and Terrence Mann, or like Jazz fans just want to get back to the NBA Finals and actually win this time. They're tired of running into Michael Jordan. They want their turn. And I understand that. I completely get it. And I think Donovan Mitchell can take you there. I just think the time in the NBA where one guy can do it on his own is over, I think. We saw LeBron basically do it on his own when he came into the league with the Cavs, but the league was not nearly as talented then as it is now. The athletes that come into the league every year are insane, man. Look no further than, the LaMelo Balls and the Ja Morants and all these guys that can jump out of the building, can run faster than you, can also shoot the three better than you. Like, these guys are built to be NBA players from a very young age. So I just think that to think that Donovan Mitchell or really any player could carry their team to an NBA Finals appearance is probably asking a lot. That said, I don't think Jazz fans really care about that. I think Jazz fans don't take the time to invest in the team on a level to a point where you're like, all right, this is what's reasonable. I think most Jazz fans, not the dedicated ones, but the majority of your fan base is like, all right, did we win or lose? Where are we at? Are we a playoff team this year? And they just look at it on a surface level, and that's fine. I think that's most NBA fan bases. So my point that I'm getting at here is that Donovan Mitchell is good enough to win you ball games, when you need him to. But I don't think it's a fair ask of the organization or really anybody to expect him to just carry you to to the finals. But I think that's what Jazz fans want, and when that doesn't happen, they resent people. I mean, that much I think we could both agree. That much is pretty clear.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think if you look at who would you put in his generation? Like if you think about the guys that were drafted with Donovan within 2 years before and 2 years after.
The Tatums, the Trae Youngs.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly looking at the 2018 draft. I think he is very clearly, I mean, he's the best player in 2017. I don't think Jason Tatum is the guy. They're in the same draft in 2017. So would you take Jason Tatum or Donovan Mitchell?
Well, I think right now I'd probably take Tatum just because of the build. But I think that last night, again, it's when you're because Don isn't undersized, right? But the way he plays the game, size matters. So it's not to say that it's a detriment to him, but it's pretty obvious that if you're 6'6", as opposed to 6'1", 6'2", if we're being generous,
sure,
that's going to change the way you go about playing the game. And this is what I talk about all the time with guys like Devin Booker and Jason Tatum and
but what about Luka? Because Luka's not the biggest guy in the
example.
world.
Well, Luka's a big boy though. I mean, Luka is
he's got that thumper.
Strong, like he's built to take physical contact. And again, that's why I'm saying like these let's use these three as an example. Book, Tatum, and Luka.
Jalen?
I mean, he's there, but I don't think that he's on, Tatum's level quite yet.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he can score, but I think
Trae Young?
Trae Young's there for sure. And Trae Young is a really close comparison to Donovan Mitchell because I think Trae Young's game is very similar. They both shoot deep threes. I think Trae is more known for shooting the three, but anyway, the point I'm getting at here is size. The size with which Don has to play with is a huge factor in his game. Book and Tatum and Luka can get the spots that Donovan Mitchell cannot get to.
What about a couple other guys? Mikal Bridges.
I mean, I think Mikal Bridges is a great player, but he's not on Don's level. I think that he fills a role. I think that he's a better defender than Don, certainly, but he's not a frontline face of your franchise guy.
Miles Bridges.
No, I don't know. Bridges again. He's a good player, but
he has a big step to take, right?
We got to talk about like when we're comparing guys to Donovan Mitchell. Don is this organization. Yeah. I don't care if you're a Rudy Gobert supporter. Donovan Mitchell is the face of the Utah Jazz.
But see, that's the point I'm trying to make. There are these other guys that are good players. Like Miles Bridges is a good player.
He's a good player.
But he's not on that level. I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are on that level. Certainly Luka's on that level. If you look at the 2016 draft, obviously the number one guy in that draft was Ben Simmons. Mm-hmm. Don's way better than Ben Simmons. Mm-hmm. I think he's way more impactful. I look at the other names in that draft. Brandon Ingram, I think is a cut below Don.
Yeah,
but very close. I look at I think Jaylen Brown's there. A name I haven't thought of in a very long time, Dragan Bender.
Yeah, dude.
You remember Dragan Bender?
Oh, yes.
2016 NBA draft.
Mr. Softy.
Yeah, I look at some of the other guys that really have been drafted around. 2016 was not a great draft. I mean, I look at the names in that draft. That was not a great draft. So I go back to, and I think as far back when we're talking about Don, like I go back to 2015 and forward to 2018, 2019. If you look at 2015, Karl Anthony Towns, that's a franchise player. Mm-hmm. Like he is, and again, I will just tell you, that's one of the best teams in the NBA. And that's one of the most devastating. You stay away from Karl Anthony Towns because when that guy gets going, he's going to win the game for them.
Yes.
And they're a very difficult matchup. I also look at some of the other guys around in that draft. There's not a whole lot of great names. Oh, by the way, 13th pick in the 2015 draft, Devin Booker, who I think is the best player of his generation right now. Out of all of those names, I think Devin Booker's the best player. Look at that shot he hit last night.
Yeah.
That we sent to each other at essentially the same time.
I mean, it's an incredible shot if you haven't seen it. I mean, it's just your classic baseline, fade away. But it was not that I'm saying that Book is Kobe, but it just had flashes of that.
Oh, absolutely,
of that
it is.
Kobe.
It's Kobe's move.
Like it had the and this is I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, being repetitive, but like. That killer mentality, I'm going to shoot this and make this, whether you think you can do anything about it or not. that mentality, I feel like Book plays with that every single night now.
Yeah,
And we've been
because he
following
does.
Book for like 5 years since he's been in the league. And there was definitely development that has happened. And I think that you keep talking about that Don needs the mid-range game. And my point is, yeah, he does need the mid-range game, but his mid-range game is going to look completely different than Devin Booker's or Jason Tatum or
Yeah,
Jaylen Brown.
I think the ability to find your shot anywhere on the floor off the wing is a huge thing. And Kobe is the one that really cemented that shot in the modern era.
Hmm.
Because Mike had it too, but I think when you look at Kobe Bryant, that dribble to the baseline for a pull up jumper is, I mean, it's everywhere in the NBA. It is the shot that Kawhi bounced off the rim 6 times and
Yeah.
in. And it is that shot Devin Booker hit that shot last night to give them a 2-point lead, and it was absolutely clutch. And
Yes.
that's what Donovan Mitchell is missing. It's that elite mid-range game where, hey, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, like all these great scorers. And again, I think Jason Tatum's got it. I think all these guys we've mentioned have it. And it's what Don's got to add to his game this summer. And he will,
Hmm.
because the 3-point range is there. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
When Donovan Mitchell adds that, it's not if. When Donovan Mitchell adds that elite mid-range game, I think he is going to be lethal. I
Yeah.
just don't know how you will stop him, because that little spin move that he's using, block extended, and he's able to spin down the baseline like for that dunk last night. His ability to pass now into the paint, pass to the corner, like he's got the bag.
Yeah.
And the other thing that kind of stood out last night is, for all the haters on Don on his defense, he had some moments last night defensively that you really question his effort defensively.
Hmm.
That's the other thing, and I think he has gotten much better defensively this year. But you can't give up blow by layups in this league.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the offensively, the killer mentality that we saw last night needs to be present more often. But then defensively, yeah, I mean, I think he has gotten better. I would agree with that. But there are definitely still times where he just doesn't seem to show his level best effort, and that's why I say, like, I appreciate Don's talent and ability, but I think he's trying to be the best and do everything that he can. But to be the best, you have to develop your game more. And that's what I'm saying. Like no Olympics, no BS this summer, none of that crap. Like, get in the gym with Brickley and work on your game and get better, man, because it's going to be required. If you want to win a championship,
Yeah.
you have to have the mid-range. It is not a negotiable. The Mike Conley missing floater thing is going to come to an end. It's going to be on Donovan Mitchell to take the ball and have a, no doubt about it, elbow jumper that is consistent every single time.
Yeah, the Mike Conley thing is a little scary. I mean, it is a little scary at this point. Like,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see where Mike goes to end this season, but I think there's a lot of capabilities. I mean, we saw the young guys, the other night play really good minutes against the Clippers, and I mean, Jared Butler is right now finding consistency. That's the issue. He was not good last night against the Knicks. I mean, nobody is gonna.
Yeah.
Let's not pull any punches. He's got to be better than that. But he was actually really good the other night against the Clippers, I thought. Like, you look at the way that these young guys fluctuate. You're probably not going to play Jared Butler a lot of minutes in the playoffs because he just isn't developing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But, as far as I'm concerned, I really hope that fans value Don to the level that they should.
Yeah.
Because I do think he is, if I had to guess right now, or if I had to rank right now, excuse me, I would probably go Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, probably, I don't know, Luka or Donovan Mitchell. Probably Luka.
Probably Luka. Yeah.
Probably Luka.
Yeah.
Because he's got everything that you want. And when I say
Luka.
that,
I hate the antics.
I
But
can't stand him.
yeah.
I can't. But I respect game, and I see that Luka Doncic can play at all three levels. He's a really gifted passer. The guy can shoot. The guy, when he wants to, plays really good defense. I think Luka's a better player. So right now, I mean, if you're going to bump down that far, Jaylen Brown or Donovan Mitchell, well, I think that's really close.
I think Jaylen Brown is a bit inconsistent, so I'd probably go with Don. But when Jalen's going, it's pretty close.
I mean, I don't know. I would have to.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter. Oh, when I'm right, it matters.
Right,
when I'm wrong, it doesn't matter.
We get it, right.
It doesn't. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, man. I look at Jalen's numbers this year, and yeah, I think he's taken a big step forward this year. I mean, and obviously the big thing for him is he's played as many games this year as he played last year.
Mm-hmm.
So your best ability is your availability. I would take Don over Jalen, but Trae Young or Donovan Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt that it is Donovan Mitchell. I think he's fourth.
Yeah.
I think it is Devin Booker. I think it is Jason Tatum or Luka Doncic. Man, that's tight.
I would take Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum has, if Jason Tatum doesn't run into LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals, I mean, this is a guy that potentially is, a champion. I mean,
But he did.
Well, great, but he did. He posterized LeBron James. I mean, he is not scared of anybody.
Well, if Stockton and Malone hadn't run into Jordan. Anyway, the point is, you're mad. Why? See, this is Jake being pissed. Why are you pissed?
Because you have to give credit where credit is due. Jason Tatum is a better player than Donovan Mitchell. He is. He's bigger. He's got the same skill set. He can get to spots where Don can't. He's been at.
I don't disagree with that.
I think that Jason Tatum has shown that he has the ability to beat LeBron James one-on-one head up. Like, he can do that, and I don't think that Donovan Mitchell can do that right now. I don't think that Don can go against Kevin Durant and beat Kevin Durant one-on-one, and that's mainly because of the size discrepancy. And I know I keep going back to that, and it's probably not something you want to talk about or hear about as a Jazz fan, but the fact is when you're 6'6", you can take shots that guys who are 6 foot can't take.
That's right.
You notice that Chris Paul takes a very select few, tactical type shots. He's very selective with the shots he takes for a reason.
He's measured.
Yeah. So that's why I say, like, I think the path for Don is a bit more difficult than it is for some of these other guys, and that's why I think it's not necessarily, from that standpoint, a fair comparison. Like, I think Trae Young is the perfect, like for like comparison, because they're both shorter players who have big time 3-ball range, who haven't won yet and haven't really, done a whole lot in the league yet. Honestly, like, I'm not even trying to hate. What do they both have in common? What they both have in common is that you went to the postseason and you didn't really make it through, and you had expectations, and everybody thought that, you were going to go a lot farther. Like, people legit thought that the Hawks last year were a potential NBA Finals team. So, and that didn't really work out. So
I think when you compare Luka and Jason Tatum, the difference is that I think Luka is very, very clutch.
Mm-hmm.
But Tatum is long, and I think he's got a killer mentality. He's having a career year.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's getting the line more. The guy's shooting threes more.
They can both put up 50. They can both do everything you want them to do. But I agree with you. Like, I think the difference the thing that Luka has on everybody is he's been playing against professionals since he was like 16.
Yeah.
Like, he's been playing against them since
he's been getting paid for a long time.
Yeah. So, I mean, and he's won championships overseas, and, like, he's done a lot of basketballing in his life already. So I think that's the big difference. But again, same logic, right? Luka hasn't won anything. Luka is, hey, I'm really good, but I haven't won anything yet. So again, there is this pool of players. All these guys we're talking about, what's the common denominator? You haven't won anything yet.
Well, and I also think that there are expectations in Boston that Jason Tatum has had to deal with. I mean, he's been through both Kemba and Kyrie. Like, I mean, he's been through Jaylen Brown injuries, and all through it, Jason Tatum has performed. I mean, he's got a lot. I think his team is not nearly as good, and has not been nearly as good as the Jazz have been.
Yeah.
But then again, the Jazz play in the West, not the East. I take Jason Tatum over Don.
Yeah.
But it's very close. I mean, it really is a matter of style. And I just think that Jason Tatum's offensive repertoire is more well-rounded.
Yeah.
I think Don shoots a better three, but I also think Jason Tatum is an elite mid-range player.
Yeah.
I think that I would like to see I would like to see one of those two guys win a championship. And because I wonder, when you win a ring, I mean, one of the things I think is so fascinating about guys that win championships
Yeah.
is what happens to you once you win a championship. You know, like, do you win that ring and then you're satiated and you're satisfied, or do you get that little taste?
Yeah.
You get that little taste and you want the whole steak, like you want the whole thing. And I wonder what this generation of players wants.
Well, I think they're hungry. I mean, I think that like specifically like Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, obviously, even Don. Like I think that this whole thing about the Knicks and that rumor mill we talked about a couple months ago, and this whole thing just stems from the fact that he wants to win, and that's the thing that I think we can't get away from. Like that's why this summer is so important for Donovan Mitchell. He has to take that next step in the mid-range game, because once he has that, and I know we reference it a lot, but the reason you need that is not simply just to be able to make shots, but when you have that mid-range, it gives you another way to beat the defender. It's just yet another thing that the defender has to take into consideration. So yeah, I mean, are they hungry? Yeah, I think they're really hungry, and I think Donovan Mitchell understands that his team right now is not good enough to win a championship, and that there's going to be this next 3 years for Don is a window in his career where it's either going to make or break. You're either going to suffer next season in an effort to rebuild this team, and then you're going to win like 2 or 3 in a row, or you're not, and you're probably going to be a Knick, or you're going to go to another, team. That's what it looks like right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think this offseason is critical for Don.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to develop the mid-range.
It's a big deal.
He just does not have the mid-range game in his arsenal, Donovan Mitchell, and that's the thing that's separating him from, you look at, again, not to keep going back to my guy Devin Booker, but you look at Devin Booker, there's no place on the floor he can't score from.
Yeah.
If he's inside a half court, he's a lethal weapon. And Donovan just doesn't have that right now. By the way, it was nice to see him explode up and dunk last night.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that a lot of people talk about is he's not dunking a lot. And I don't really care. I think everybody in the NBA but Steph Curry can dunk.
Yeah.
But you look at the guys that we're talking about, Tatum, Trae Young, obviously Book, Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
You look at all these names, and all those guys play in the mid-range.
Yes.
Every one of them. And that's not their favorite place to play. Luka certainly would rather take a three and make a three or pass it.
Yeah.
But he absolutely has that little step back fadeaway that Dirk taught him.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's the next step. I think Donovan Mitchell, if he adds that mid-range, because I don't think it's when he adds that mid-range, he'll be right there with Devin Booker. It's because, again, not to be redundant, it's the thing missing from his repertoire.
Yeah.
All right, let's get your thoughts in here. James Knight, what's up, my man? First one in today. Rudy Sanchez says, morning, fellas. Do you guys think the Jazz can catch the Warriors now that Curry's out? Well, what are they now? 2 up on Dallas, 2.5 back of Golden State, I think that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. I think that Golden State is now kind of where the Jazz were earlier in the year. When you're dealing with issues and your best players are missing time and you're kind of going through the ringer, and I think that now it's so funny, and it's probably an unfair ask, but now you're going to ask Klay Thompson to kind of carry you a little bit, and I'm not sure that that's even a fair or realistic ask at this point.
But this Draymond Green shit last night, like, that just can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, again, we've talked a lot about Dre on this show. And I think Draymond Green's a hell of a player, and he's very important to Golden State. You can't get ejected there.
Mm-hmm.
And after the game, Draymond saying, if you didn't see it, he was just mouthing off, as he's known to do.
Right.
You can't say I didn't deserve to get ejected. Well, you did enough to get ejected. That's the bottom line. Like, if you're James Harden last night, I don't know how many people saw the flagrant foul on James Harden. It was a ridiculous call.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to the basket. It's a block charge situation. He catches the defender with an elbow in the face on a play that I thought was clearly a block, and everybody kind of agrees. He got called for a charge and a flagrant one. Like, that's something you can argue about.
Yes.
Draymond Green mouthing off and getting teed up and ejected is not something you can argue about. When Steph is out, Draymond Green has to play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I absolutely think that the Jazz have a chance to catch Golden State. Will they? I don't know. This next stretch of games coming up, speaking of James Harden, you're about to see Brooklyn and Philly. And, I mean, you have a stretch of games here for the Utah Jazz that frankly, is very difficult. This back-to-back tonight is asking a lot, and I worry about Rudy Gobert in this game tonight because I think that you didn't play Mike Conley last night, and you walked away from the Knicks, so you should have arrested well-to-do Mike Conley. But I look at Rudy Gobert, and I still maintain that he's not 100% or even close to it. And I know nobody's 100% this time of year. I've seen a lot of Rudy Gobert basketball, and he does not seem, right. He does not seem, he seems a little off of his game. So you're playing a team that, really has bangers down low now. I mean, Andre Drummond is a legit force in the paint. That guy is one of the best rebounders in the NBA. And this is a team that knows in the Brooklyn Nets, they've got to get out and run.
Yeah.
And those things are very difficult for Rudy Gobert to deal with. He does not do well when he plays a big brute center that bangs. He gets frustrated.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get every call. And I think the Julius Randle situation last night shows you that Rudy gets a hell of a lot of calls these days in the NBA. I mean, there were 5-6 calls, and the Knicks broadcast were pointing them out. Like, there were 5-6 calls last night where Rudy Gobert, he hit Julius Randle in the head. He clearly pulls Julius Randle's jersey from behind to keep Julius from – Julius Randle misses a layup. Rudy's got a handful of jersey there. No call. Like, Rudy Gobert is and I don't know if that's Rudy gaining more respect. The illegal screen thing that everybody talks about now with Rudy Gobert, it's just not being called. They do not call Rudy Gobert for illegal screens. So the idea that Rudy has to bitch and moan at the official, as he did last night, and you could see the official telling him to watch yourself because, he's just barking when you're getting a ton of calls. So Rudy is, I don't know, is it gaining respect with the officials? I don't know. But when you look at these things tonight, this is Miles Turner in Indiana. Guys like Andre Drummond have typically frustrated Rudy.
Man, doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago?
It does.
The Miles Turner thing.
But it's still real. You see, that was the jumping off point for guys taking runs at Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Because you know that Rudy's not going to answer you because, that's right, Rudy said he's not going to ever battle somebody
But he'll
physically.
fight someone in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's
keep it real.
Yeah, it's comical to me.
Yeah, he'll fight someone in the parking lot. You know what I mean?
Anyway, my point is Rudy is getting calls from the officials or non-calls, really.
Yeah.
It's not that they're blowing the whistle for Rudy. It's that they're not blowing the whistle against him.
Yeah.
So, but you look at this stretch of games now. I mean, it's Brooklyn tonight, at Boston on Wednesday, at Charlotte on Friday, and then Dallas. And it's like, man, this is that Philly stretch that Dallas went through. Now you're going through that same stretch, but you're going to replace Philly with Boston. Like that Brooklyn, the Knick Brooklyn-Boston stretch is critical. You got to win 2 of these 3. You got to go to Boston and win that game.
Yes.
Because I think you're asking a lot of this team to play back-to-back with the Nets on the back end of it and win. Now, the Nets obviously are at home. They're not going to have Kyrie. Totally get that. But this Nets team is in desperate straits.
Yeah.
And you don't have anybody that can even slow Kevin Durant down. So it's going to be interesting to see that. But I think once you get through that Dallas game next Saturday, then you head to LA on Tuesday to finish this trip.
Yep.
If you've only lost to Brooklyn, if you win those 4 straight, which you probably should, if you're legit, if you beat Boston, Charlotte, Dallas, and LA, you probably catch Golden State. You probably catch Golden State.
Well, and the truth is you're answering what Dallas did on their run because Dallas went through the same thing. So I think that it's a really important run.
And but hold on, I think that's a great point. Dallas is falling apart now, though, after going through that run. If you look at the way they've lost back-to-back games at Philly and at Charlotte, that's a really difficult
But see,
ask.
the team like Charlotte, the Charlottes of the world are the teams that really, stick it to you because they know they're not better than you, but they know that they can kind of hang around.
They can out-athlete you.
Yeah. And so, it's like Charlotte and Houston and the Sacramentos and those kind of, again, Book had to make that shot last night in Sacramento. Sacramento's a team that will push you. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this team bounces back on the back-to-backs and how they work through this road trip because I think what really is important here is not catching Golden State. No. That literally doesn't matter. What's important is keeping the 4 spot and keeping home court advantage. And if you're the 3, that's neat, cool, great, love it. But at the end of the day, what really matters is just making sure you don't fall to the 5th seed. That's what matters.
Yeah, and because again, I'm telling you to watch the Timberwolves. I
Yeah.
mean, that team is.
Everybody thinks it's like malarkey or BS that the Timberwolves are good. It's not malarkey, dude. They have been good. They have been very athletic, and they've needed some help coming together as a team.
And they
but
play
that's happening.
a system.
Yeah.
They have an offense.
Yes.
And they have a bunch of young guys that, that just don't care right now.
Yeah.
Like and Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, like you're looking at a team.
Anthony Edwards.
You're looking at a team with these 2 veterans on it that are bringing a bunch of young guys with them. And that's why Patrick Beverley is so critical to that team. And you just look at the way that the Western Conference is shaping up. There's no easy out.
Yeah.
There's not. Like Sports Center this morning talking about how dangerous can the Lakers be. Like I'm telling you, there's no easy out in these playoffs. So yeah, if you get to number 2 and you're playing a 2-7, you look at the standings now.
Yeah.
If you play a 2-7 in the playoffs now like that, there's not a. I think the Mavericks matchup is a good one if you have home court.
Yeah.
I do, but if you get to 2, like you're not going to. By the way, you're not going to catch Memphis. You could be a 3-6, but the 3-6 right now is Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know that I want that, dude.
Do you really want a Minnesota matchup in the first round? I do not.
I think that Dallas is a better matchup, like within the game. Your individual matchups are better there.
And by the way, they're so hot in Minneapolis right now. They've caught and passed Denver. I mean, and now all this talk about whether or not Jamal Murray plays this year. Apparently, he's had some weakness in that knee he's felt. So they're questioning whether it's worth it to bring him back. Like, that's how quickly things change. Look how good New Orleans is now. New Orleans has passed the LA Lakers. The Lakers are in the dead last spot. They are only 2.5 games up on a playoff spot right now over a very wanting San Antonio Spurs team. Like, the West is a grinder, bro.
Yeah.
The West is a grinder.
Yes.
So when you look at matchups, hell yes, I'll take the 4-5 against Dallas with home court advantage. You're going to win that series.
Yeah.
You're going to win that series.
Yes.
But if you lose tonight, I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
No, but I do think that, again, this is a nice tester game. I know that Kyrie's not going to play because obviously it's a home game for them.
Yep.
But I still think that this Brooklyn team is a good team even without Kyrie. They're not as good, but they're a good team. Guys like Patty Mills are bringing big time contributions to this team. Guys like Bruce Brown are bringing big time contributions. So, yeah, I would agree that it's, tomorrow on the show, if they lose by 10 tonight, we're not going to say the world is ending. But, man, if you could win this game by like 3 to 5 points, that'd be a fire win, dude. That would be a very clutch performance out of this team.
Go into that Dallas game with a 1.5 lead. So that it just, the result doesn't determine playoff seeding.
Yes.
That's all that matters. And so you got to win 4 out of the next 5. And I think if you lose tonight, you can win 4 straight. There's no doubt in my mind. This team does that regularly. And by the way, they're doing this without Bojan.
Yeah.
And I love Bojan Bogdanovic as a contributor for this team. But you're starting to see why they feel like they can remake this roster around Donovan Mitchell. And I continue to say that. It matters how they play when they beat the Knicks last night without Conley and without Bogdanovic because of Donovan Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 3 after 3 after 3 worth a dagger.
Yeah, and when the Knicks tried to push back a little bit, Don came right back in. Literally, he was sitting on the bench. The Knicks pushed back a little bit. Quinn brings him back in the game. I'm talking about first offensive possession with Don in the game. 3-ball pure as if he was never out of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you, like, Don will kill teams. He will do that. But we need to see that more consistently. I just want him to bring that fire from Madison Square Garden onto the Barclays Center. That's what I want.
Edgar Garcia, good morning to you. James Knight says Don definitely has another gear. And who'd have thought the Don eventually going to the Knicks topic would be raised again? Why wouldn't we raise that topic today? They just played the Knicks.
Yeah.
He played his ass off. We already know that the Knicks tried to acquire him at the deadline. And we already know that their plan is to re-engage the Jazz in the offseason. So, James, why wouldn't we talk about that?
If you think that Donovan Mitchell is going to be a lifer with the Jazz, you're mistaken. He's not going to be a lifer with the Jazz.
Neville93 says, good morning, people. What's up? Rudy Sanchez says, were talks for future trades happening with the Jazz front office in New York? I doubt that. I seriously doubt that. The issue for the Knicks is that you have your best trade asset is declining in value in Julius Randle. He is having a terrible second half. Dreadful. And you saw it on display last night. He didn't want to shoot. He's going to the basket, and whether he got fouled or not, it doesn't matter. He missed 3 pretty easy layups.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a terrible spot, so his value is declining as an asset for them. So they should have traded Julius Randle at the deadline.
Yeah.
And they had suitors, and I think they wanted to hang on to him because I think their number one focus, as I've said 1,000 times, their number one focus is Donovan Mitchell. And to make a Donovan Mitchell trade, it's going to have to be multiple clubs, and Julius Randle is going to be a chip in that trade.
And I think what was interesting last night, though, all the Jazz media people were talking about it, is the Jazz brass, the front office, including Ryan Smith, we're all sitting courtside to watch that game, which I think is a really, again, it's all surmising. It's all, this is all opinion and conjecture. Well, but there's not, you can't definitively say, well, they sat courtside because they were evaluating a trade.
This was a message game. This was a message game. The message was, we're here to support Donovan Mitchell in his hometown.
Yeah.
That's the message that I took out of that. And I asked my one of the guys I know at the Jazz, I asked him about that, and I haven't heard back from him.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see. This team is not, in my opinion, in the mode of trade Donovan Mitchell.
No.
They're not. And I think the message that was sent very clearly by all of those guys being there was that, hey, we know this is a special night for Donovan Mitchell. We're here to support you. Donovan Mitchell and Ryan Smith, and I know I've said this before, they have an extremely good relationship.
Yeah.
Ryan Smith, the owner of the Jazz, and Donovan Mitchell are good. There is no issue there. Are they best friends? I have no idea. But they have a very good relationship as owner-player. And it is not surprising to me to see a guy like Ryan Smith sitting courtside watching his guy go.
Yeah.
It's not. So, James, you can be salty and be whatever it is you're being today. The conversation around Donovan Mitchell being traded for by the New York Knicks is a daily conversation in NBA circles.
Yeah.
And when he's playing at the Garden, why wouldn't we talk about it? Yeah. And it's why I just don't think Jazz fans have a proper perspective. With all due respect, I think if you think that Donovan's not going to the Knicks, or they don't want him, or this is all bullshit, or you're just making stuff up, or okay, cool. Yeah, I know I'm wrong every time, all the time on the Jazz. We get it. I just never get anything right. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Steve Humbone says, you honestly think this summer they would trade Gobert? I think they would trade him last summer, this summer, next summer, as soon as they can trade him.
You want to talk about a 3-team setup?
I think they realize that Rudy is a very, very good ball player, but his contract is preventing them from winning.
Yep.
I mean, he just isn't. It's not a thing where look, Rudy's a lot of things. He is not a championship player.
Yeah.
He is an elite defensive player, and Holly Rowe can go on and on about how he's disrespected, and he's not. The problem is you have an issue with the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is he's an elite defensive player who hamstrings you offensively on two fronts. He is not like, look how awkward the dribble spin into the middle of the paint was last night.
Yeah.
Like almost falling over.
Yeah.
Right? He is a limited offensive player who limits you on the floor, and he limits your ability to go out and get more and to help the offense because of his contract.
Yeah.
So I will say it until I'm blue in the face. The Jazz would trade Rudy Gobert today if they could.
Yeah.
Because they have to get out from under that contract, because you can no longer ride with Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles.
You got to sign a second frontline starter, man.
At what point do we stop talking about, oh, great, Buckets O'Neal is an elite on-ball defender 7 years ago? He's not an elite on-ball defender.
No.
He's not. You've got to upgrade that spot. You've got to upgrade Bojan Bogdanovic. You've got to upgrade Mike Conley. You know, if all those guys were stellar players in their early 20s, if you were the Memphis Grizzlies and Rudy Gobert was on your roster, if you were and again, not to keep talking about the Timberwolves, look at the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves have a top-tier center that is paid very well, but why are they winning? Why are they? I think they have the best record in the NBA since the break.
They do.
Why are they winning? Well, because that center is a dominant offensive force who runs the floor and plays defense. And by the way, he's surrounded with offensive juggernauts like Ant Edwards and again D'Angelo, and look at the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, man.
Another young player in Don's generation, John Morant, who I think is rapidly on the rise. But what's the deal with them? They have a big lumbering center who's surrounded by a bunch of young guys and another center in JJ who can shoot the three.
Yes, as Jazz fans know all about.
It's the build of this team is wrong. That's why they would trade Rudy Gobert, not because he's a bad player. You guys are awesome, David Lee says. Yeah, we know.
Thanks, David.
Jesus Christ Destroys Atheism says, also Dwayne and Don do too like a younger brother. Also, Dwayne and Don do too like a younger brother.
He's saying...
Like a mentorship?
No, you said that Don and Ryan Smith had a very good relationship. So he's saying D. Wade and Don also have a good relationship.
Well, there's a lot of people who believe that Don and D. Wade don't have much of a relationship. And it's an interesting...
I just think it's so behind the scenes. You know, the Don Ryan Smith thing is very front and center. That's very clear.
Yes.
The D. Wade and Don thing, frankly, D. Wade's role in this whole thing has, for me, been very behind the scenes and low key. I thought that D. Wade coming into the organization would have been a little bit more out there than it has been.
He's an ambassador.
Yeah,
that's what he is. He is a guy that advocates for the organization.
Yeah.
Whether that's in free agency, whether that's in however you want to put it. He is not a guy that's got some massive influence over basketball operations. I think that he is used for his opinion and his experience on a limited basis. Yeah. He is not a guy that is dictating basketball policy. That's Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
I like Dwayne. I think it was a nice addition. It brings him into ownership circles because he is eventually going to own the Miami Heat. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But for my money, I just don't think Dwayne Wade has a day-to-day impact. And I from what people tell me, him and Donovan are friendly, but they're not bros. They're not tight, because he's just not that influential.
Yeah.
So it's just something to keep an eye on. Michael Burton says, I think Rudy has shown improvement the last few games in being more of a threat in the paint. But what does that look like? If Mike Conley doesn't play, Rudy Gobert has less impact offensively. And what is fascinating to me, and people argued with me on Twitter over it last night, I tweeted that this team's got to go back to pick and roll basketball.
Yeah. In
the clutch, when they're down, run pick and roll with Rudy at the top of the key. Oh, why would you not do that? That's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
That's your bread and butter, man. Why fight against that?
Well, and I think it's his strength in his offensive game. I mean, again, it's no secret he's limited, but that is something he can do really well. And I think that it is good offense for this team. I mean, I have to say, getting Rudy Gobert rolling to the basket for either an alley-oop or just a straight up pass it to him and he dunks, that's great offense, man. Because that's high percentage looks.
Think about what it's allowing Don to do. It is, because we're all seeing Donovan pass much more effectively, right? It allows him to shoot a three. It allows him to get to the rim, pick and roll with Rudy Gobert. It allows him to get to the rim. It allows him to shoot a three. It allows Don to drive and kick. But what it also does is allows Rudy to roll to the basket to now be the rebounding force that he has been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what comes out of pick and roll. But with Donovan's ability to pass the basketball now, it's a must that you run pick and roll.
Yeah.
You have to run pick and roll. And there's too many times where they don't. Ruff's official says, trade Don for Kyrie. Nah, I'm fine. Rec 1 says, but can't they extend with a lower per year contract? Rudy Gobert's in the first year of a massive extension. So now you would not do that. You already extended him. Jesus Christ Destroys Atheism says, actually, Royce is pretty damn good still, regardless what you think. He's shown it as his house in Forest, too. Okay, so what does Royce O'Neal as a pretty good defender mean? Because I'm telling you right now, he is a minus defender.
I'll post videos tonight. I'll show you tonight. It will happen tonight. I guarantee you he will get switched on to Patty Mills, and Patty Mills will go right by him. It won't be even a contest. I'll put videos up tonight on Twitter about it.
Royce's best use defensively is in passing lanes, like deflecting passes when he's a wanting rebounder. Like, he is no longer put Royce on their best player and he'll lock him down. He was never that, in my opinion. I mean, the Jazz are very good as a PR machine. So they'll put out there, Royce is a great on-ball defender. Lockdown, and he's not. He's not that guy. And there are a few of those guys in this league, the Pat Beverly type defenders. Royce is not that guy. He is. The issue is Royce O'Neal, whatever this story is about Royce O'Neal, Twitter searching his name after bad games, going after media members because they tweeted things about him. Royce O'Neal is mentally soft. He will not shoot big threes in big moments, but when they're up 20, hand him the ball and he'll let threes go all day long. He's a soft player. He is not good enough.
Yeah.
You've got to do better than Royce O'Neal. Sorry, man. And Trent Forrest is just such a limited player because he's not developing a three-point shot. If you're going to look at Nickeil Alexander-Walker, now he didn't play well last night, but the reason he's getting more minutes is he's making the three ball.
Yeah.
If you're going to play and you are not a star on this team, Daniel House is the perfect example. Daniel House plays because he can make the corner three. You can throw him the ball. He doesn't care if it goes in or out. He's going to shoot it every time, which is what you want a guy to do.
Yeah.
And he makes a pretty good percentage. And he's a decent defender. I mean, none of those guys that we're talking about, the Royce O'Neals, the Trent Forrest, the Daniel House, none of them are elite defenders. They're not. They're role players. And again, I look at Trent Forrest the same way I look at Daniel House, the same way I look at Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the same way I look at Pascal or any of these guys. Any of your role players, Jordan Clarkson included, when they get extended exposure over long periods of time, what happens? Well, their batting average goes down, right? Their return diminishes. The more you play them, the less return you get.
Yeah.
The less you play them, the more return you get, right? That's the balancing point for coaches. That's the tipping point. How much am I going to use Daniel House? By the way, Royce O'Neal is such an amazing on-ball defender. Yeah, they were pulling him out of games for Daniel House in the last last fourth quarter, certainly.
In closing time.
Last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, Daniel House was playing over Royce O'Neal. But I can't believe that because Royce is the best defensive player we've ever seen ever on any team, sport, whatever, nothing. It doesn't matter. I mean, he defends your mom. Like, it's amazing. Fuck out of here with that. Atheism says, great point, Jake. Yeah, behind the scenes. Michael Burton says, agreed. Rudy's pick and roll is powerful. Don certainly improved his passing, and it wasn't for, whoa, hey now. Comment up. And if it wasn't for the Knicks holding, fouling Gobert, but see, this is the problem. This is the question.
You can't say if it wasn't for that because that's what it is. That's what teams do to him.
Right, and it's what Rudy does to teams. He holds and fouls guys just about every play defensively. Look how many still shots teams send to the league of Rudy with a handful of jersey. Or a handful of, I can't remember who it was a couple of weeks ago, where he had his hand fully in the waistband of that player, holding him down.
Yeah, man.
That's how Rudy Gobert plays defense. But nobody blows the whistle, so you're not speeding if you don't get a ticket. Right? I mean, it is what it is.
Yes.
Jeremy Bolton, hello. Jake promising to post videos like he's promising to send out casual shirts.
Yeah, dude, hey, we've been busy, bro. We've been busy.
Ruff's official says, Don isn't a great point. He is too short, and he has no D. Here we go. Isn't clutch when needed. So he's just a terrible player. We should get rid of him then because he's not good on the ball, which is a lie. He doesn't play defense, which we've seen regularly this year is not true. And he's not clutch at all.
Let's trade him. What do you want to trade him for?
Why are you keeping Donovan? He sucks.
Yeah.
What are you talking
That's fucking interesting, man.
Yeah. Tanner says the Jazz best PR machine is homerism of Craig Bowler, Jack, and Holly Rowe. Truth. Little Jake props on the measuring cups. Top Ramen says. We'll talk about that in a minute. Rec One says Royce is a bit small too. He can't defend so much players correctly. Well, he's not an every position player. He's not a. He doesn't have the KD length. He doesn't have the LeBron girth. I'll move on. Tanner says buckets will bench. Exactly right.
Yep.
Atheism says, well, we didn't say elite, but about House, but he's definitely made Booker work, and Booker missed a lot of shot. Well,
see, but again,
we're revising history.
Yeah.
We're revising history. The coaches are trying something different.
Yeah, they're running a lot of players out there.
Yeah. Which is cool, man. Like I don't listen, I think that when you are where the Jazz are, you have to find what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Quinn Snyder, I don't think even at this moment you know what you believe in. Because a guy like Eric Paschall, I believe, should get more minutes in more situations. And he doesn't. And then one night he'll play 20 minutes, and the next 5 games you won't see him.
Yeah.
You know, like we'll see him on the bench handing out Gatorade cups. Like,
yeah. Paschall low bench.
Yeah,
right.
Paschall low bench. Right? Like, that's what you see. I just think it's one of those things where everybody wants to rewrite history. Oh, Daniel House shut down Devin Booker, who scored 30 points in that game.
That motherfucker don't miss,
I mean,
man.
I'm telling you, right? Like, I mean, Devin Booker in that game was so shut down that he was 12 of 24, 4 of 8 from 3, 7 rebounds, 7 dimes, 2 steals. He only had 3 turnovers, and he scored 30 points. I mean, God damn. Daniel House shutting it down.
Man, put the handcuffs on Book, man. All right.
You see my point?
All right.
That's it, Skippy.
Royce is a minus defender. Daniel House, in my opinion, in short spurts, is a good defender. You're not shutting Devin Booker down. Who shut down Devin Booker? Nobody.